I'm going to start the song because it's reasonably long.
Okay. Alright, ready?
Wait. I know, I'm pairing it. I'm sorry. Well, this is probably exciting for people to watch.
Destroy all love.
It's up there on Instagram. Setting up your Twitch.
Destroy all love. Destroy all love.
I wonder who made this
Destroy all
song.
love.
Pretty cool song, right?
Pretty awesome.
It's got that interview with
Alright, the thought has crossed my mind, yeah. If something should happen, yeah, I'll go along with it. But if it doesn't, destroy all love.
This is great.
Alright, the thought has crossed my mind, yeah. If something should happen, yeah, I'll go along with it. But if it doesn't, it's no thing to me because that's not what I'm out here for. I'm out here to bomb, period. That's what I started for. I didn't start writing to go to Paris. I didn't start writing to do chemistry. I started writing to bomb, destroy all love. That's what I'm doing. How long do you think you'll do it? Till I'm finished. Destroy all love.
Alright, fade it out.
Yeah.
Welcome to the question block.
Welcome.
So I'm Alex, Dr. Wires.
What's your tag?
My tag is Wires, but it's like, to make it original, there's probably already a Wires out there, so I'd put like a 1 and a 3 in it.
Oh, like Deadmau 5.
Yeah. Yeah. How
And
about you?
I'm Arielist, and my tag is Arielist, Ariel.ist, and there'd probably be a lot of arrows like pointing up.
Yeah, and you have previously tagged in New York City.
I have,
We'll
but
get
yeah,
into that later because
We'll
that's
talk about
really
that.
like modern tagging. That's
Yeah.
like the newest taggers. But we're talking about the history
The
of
youngest.
graffiti and street art. I thought maybe like should we start by revealing we could talk about like our sources for this so people know that we did our research, or they like know what to go look at.
Yeah, so my sources are these streets. Yeah.
You firsthand know and have talked to a bunch of street artists, and then we watched Style Wars, and
Yes.
we watched Exit Through the Gift Shop, and
And
we
a
did a bunch of reading.
Ton of interviews from like the Denmark and like Berlin graffiti blogs and podcasts.
Right.
But they're like, my name is Bust.
You went deep on the research for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know all about the German scene. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. I guess we'll start with we're gonna do sort of a historical tour, right?
Yes.
And like, so modern, I guess, tagging street art, kind of like, I guess as far as the people that have been interviewed about it, it goes back to like the 60s, but graffiti and tagging stuff, as we all know, goes back to like prehistory.
Yes.
So there's like the
Real-
first...
Real quick, just for like people who are like super into graffiti, we're not going to spend a super long time on like the ancient history, but we are going to talk about it a little bit because it's really funny.
It's true, we don't want to make people mad.
Yeah, we don't.
They're like, I'm here to hear about
like exactly.
my tags.
Yeah, and we know that none of those people are alive right now, like the ancient ones, to
Yeah, to get mad.
But we want to talk about it because it's funny. So go ahead.
So there is like the oldest ever like wall stencil is of a human hand, and it's like 30,000 years old that they found
Wow.
in a cave.
Where?
It's I think in France.
Of course.
And then is it Lourdes, France? Lourdes, France has like is like the famous cave with all the paintings of animals and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, they found like stencils, and then a lot of the best preserved ancient graffiti is from Pompeii, because the city got covered in ash, like
Got dusted.
it got dusted instantly. Which so they're, I think in like 80 like BC, maybe 80 thereabouts. But yeah, this entire like busy like seaport kind of resort town, in part of Rome or whatever got buried in like the course of like 30 minutes or whatever by this volcano erupting. So all the graffiti got preserved, and the city was covered with graffiti. And so it ranges from like stencils. There are like political advertisements. There was like an advertisement for a lost horse that somebody's looking for.
We have the funniest ones. You want to go back and forth and like read a couple?
Yeah. We'll read some of the classic. This is
these
classic
are really,
Pompeii graffiti.
These are really funny.
And they're great.
Okay, so this was in a bar or brothel, because they weren't sure which were like bars and which were brothels, and which were hotels. They were just like, they're probably all the same thing.
Kind of all the same.
Yeah, and it said, "Weep, you girls, my penis has given you up. Now it penetrates men's behinds. Goodbye, wondrous femininity."
Bye-bye.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, they're, what is this? The House of Cuspius Pansa, which was a restaurant. So the finances officer of the Emperor Nero says, "This food is poison."
I love that. That might have been true, too.
What a great, that's such a funny tag to put outside like a restaurant. That would really sting.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. So this is in the gladiator barracks. Floronius, privileged soldier of the 7th Legion, was here. The women did not know of his presence. Only 6 women came to know.
He was here.
Yeah, it was like, yo, I was here, and like
Floronius only slept with 7.
Yeah, he's like
6 women.
I love that though, because he's kind of like admitting that like he didn't get all that much like ass, but he should have. It's very honest for like a soldier.
There are definitely some pining sort of like love letters too.
Oh yeah, I love this one.
Well, yeah, because they were like, I guess people would like take shits all over the place, and because they had like open sewers. So I know. All right. Well, I'm just setting it up. The reason that like there's so many of these about shitting on stuff, and they're like, stop doing it, is because they had open sewers. So people kept shitting like all over the place.
Oh, this one isn't even.
So it says, "Watch it, you that shits in this place. May you have Jove's anger if you ignore this."
Oh no, I meant.
And then you meant this one.
Yeah, wait, I want to read that one now.
Okay.
Theophilus, don't perform oral sex on girls against the city wall like a dog. I love that.
Theophilus.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did, because you wouldn't blow up your friend's spot like that.
Does Theophilus mean that, like, he fucks gods? Because it's in a Theo, or he loves gods? Theo?
Here's another, just outside the Vesuvius Gate. Shitter, may everything turn out okay so that you can leave this place. It's like it sounds almost Japanese, how like polite it is.
So I guess someone was like really sick, and they were like, "Yeah, I hope you feel better, so you can like get the F out of here, please."
I think they're just like, if anybody's like taking a shit outside the Vesuvius Gate, things aren't going well, because that's like not a good place for it.
Yeah,
but
it's never a good place for it.
Yeah, when they dug up Pompeii, it has raised crosswalks that are like stepping stones because there often was just sewage overflowing into the street.
Oh, people were like finger banging in that sewage too. Gross.
Yeah. Cruel Lalagus, why do you not love me?
Aw.
Yeah.
A simp. There's a lot of simp graffiti in here as well. There's one that's like,
if anyone does not believe in Venus, they should gaze at my girlfriend.
Oh, you wrote that, didn't you?
That's sweet.
Okay. So there was a ton of graffiti in Pompeii. There was also some, well, actually, like, could all hieroglyphics in Egypt just be graffiti?
No, I don't think so. But kind of. Those are like inscriptions, right? I think the definition of graffiti is that it's written by the common people.
Well, they were the original Keith Haring.
That is one reason that
that
archaeologists really love graffiti, is because it's not the official like records written in Latin by historians. It's written by, everyday people.
You get the real dirt. But yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's how, because the historian's not going to write that like people keep shitting all over the city and it's a real problem, but you're going to see it.
Oh yeah, especially when Nero was emperor. He's like, it was amazing and I was the best.
Yeah, and they do also know, well, I guess both from historical accounts, but from a lot of the graffiti that women in Pompeii, it's not like everyone's assumption that there were no like women's rights. Women could read and were educated and owned businesses, although often as widows. So there is like a story, if you guys dig into the history of this, of a woman who was widowed, but she was in her, they think, 40s when like Pompeii, exploded. But
Exploded.
she owned a brothel, and the Romans weren't uptight about sex. Owning a brothel was like owning a
That's your
nightclub
job.
or owning a restaurant.
The first profession.
Yeah. So, she both owned a brothel and would like sometimes work there.
Did she
'Cause,
write
like,
graffiti?
if you're the manager, sometimes you got to fill in.
Did she
as
write
bartender.
graffiti?
And so.
Did she?
Yeah, well, so I don't think she wrote the graffiti, but women who worked for her graffitied it and wrote like the name of the establishment or whatever.
Oh, they were like her street team?
Yeah, she had like a street team, I guess.
They were like, come here, like we...
I think because her name was on the establishment when they like dug it up, or maybe they found her house.
Okay.
And then one of the graffitis was written as in like the title of like the way they would write on like the Senate or whatever, like their Senate title, like, Julius Caesar, conqueror or whatever. And it was like, Agatha, she sucks cocks.
That's awesome. Oh my God. I love that.
Yeah.
So there was graffiti all over the world. But then Christianity happened and all that fun stuff like stopped for like a moment, and because people were busy like nailing Jesus's proclamations. That was like the graffiti, I guess, the Luther. So that took like a major like pause with it, I guess.
Kind of, yeah, I suppose so. Why is there like not much Middle and Dark Ages graffiti?
Legit, like all the research I did,
yeah,
pretty much said what I just said.
I guess, yeah, maybe most of the buildings that are made of stone that survived are like castles and like churches.
But
right?
also like during the rise of Christianity, like that was the graffiti. Like people were like, Jesus. They were just like writing, or they were writing like half the Jesus fish in the sand with their foot, and that was like graffiti. And then like if you were like also a Jesus person, you would like complete the other half. Like that was
Is
like.
this actually a thing, or did you just make that up?
No, that was actually a thing. That was like sand graffiti.
That doesn't count because nobody's gonna see that.
Like it's like 78 BC, and then it's like.
Your history then jumps
1940.
1940.
Kilroy was here, became a symbol of the U.S. Super GI during World War II and the Korean War. It showed up everywhere worldwide. In 1949, Edward Seymour invents the first aerosol spray can. In 1961, the Berlin Wall was built. On the west side, people were free to approach the wall and did so with a colorful commentary.
So yeah, spray paint didn't come around for a while. Weed pasting has been around for a long time, though.
Wait, the aerosol can?
Yeah, 1950.
Yeah, true.
It seems pretty recent.
And then, so in 1967, early writers to emerge. First, like, things that is still, like, major art and like historical movements that's like still going on today, that was started by a bunch of like 12-year-old kids in the subway. Yeah. In New York.
As far as like international art movements go.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I guess you could say like the Beats, like writers' movements maybe.
Oh, come on.
But yeah, as far as visual art goes, that's one of them that really stands out.
I just think it's so cool. So the first graffiti artist like name, or I guess we should qualify the different, or state the difference between a graffiti writer, mm-hmm. which is basically writing your name, and a graffiti artist or a street artist, which is like the mural kind of stuff. That's not usually a name. It's more like a picture or something that you see. And then a muralist is like, I guess, someone who's commissioned.
Okay.
I think that's the distinction that graffiti writers like the best.
Yeah. I mean, New York has both all over the place.
Yes.
Right? And there's both commissioned pieces, and then there's tags that can be like small, and then there's like really like elaborate word art or like elaborate tags. Too.
Oh yeah, should we say the glossary since then we can just use it freely.
Okay. Why don't
All
you
right.
go through define some stuff for us?
Okay. So tag, what's a tag?
That's your specific symbol or name or words that you use to mark that you were here.
Yeah. So yeah, it's your stylized signature,
Okay.
which I really like.
Nice.
And
It's just a quick, something you'd make in 5 minutes.
it's or like an outline, something that you do really quick. If you're a lot of graffiti writers like to be called graffiti writers, not graffiti artists. It's different.
Okay.
Let's see. What is to bomb?
To bomb is it's putting your signature on stuff, or it is tagging stuff.
Or to cover with tags.
Okay.
What's going all city?
All cities, if you get your name on enough trains that your name appears in all 5 boroughs.
Yeah. Really good. Okay. Now
Nice.
you passed the graffiti test.
All right.
So the first graffiti writer that was really popping up in the late 70s, early 80s was Tacky. And
What was his number?
I think it was
162, I think. 161.
Yeah, I have it in here because an article in the New York Times wrote an article about him.
Nice.
Yeah.
He was the 60s or 70s, right?
Yeah, he was the one that people would see his name everywhere. And then other kids saw that and they were like, oh, that's really cool. This person has their name. Well, they realized it was a name. I think at first they were like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, oh, he has his name everywhere, in all the boroughs. Everyone sees it going to work. He sees it. And so that's kind of how the rise of bombing trains happened. I guess graffiti writers used to tag up the insides of trains, and then they wanted to create more elaborate designs and larger designs. So they moved on to spray paint, and you can't really use spray paint inside, so they started tagging the outsides of trains. And they would do this by waiting in the train yards.
Or sneaking
underground.
into the train yards at night, or into tunnels where they're storing the trains. And they just, if not the trains, they'll tag up all of the underground tunnels and stuff too. Have tons of tags.
Yeah. So there's
It's also easier to get at least in the 80s or 70s, right? It's easier to do a big piece and not get caught if you're doing it in a deserted train yard in the middle.
kind of when it hit home to me, I think in the movie, the movie that we watched,
In Style Wars.
yeah. A lot of the artists featured in it, they would say how they would sit on the train bench, and they would watch their work go by, and that is very with your work on it, and you're watching other people watch your work, and you know that it's going to
But they're kind of
all the
snobby
cities.
too, depending, right? So they're other people don't know what it means, but the other writers know what it means.
Yeah, I think that's pretty noble though, because very insular, which I think is one of the things that makes graffiti really unique from other forms of I guess fine art, because usually you want to impress a crowd, or you want consumers, and it's enough for you to, I think it was enough for them to just do it, but also for other to get respect from other writers.
I was reading an interview with Scheme, who's in our sound clip in the beginning, but who's in that movie, and has the great interview with his mom, rolling her eyes in their apartment, when he talks, he basically says that very real stuff about art. He's like, I'm doing it just to do it. If I get famous, that'd be cool, but I don't care. But he, in a later interview, he made the point that, because he went on to have a professional career doing like art-related stuff. But he was like, yeah, to do like a big piece, you have the idea, you work it out with pencil and paper, then you like gather materials, you figure exactly like what colors and everything you're gonna need because you have to bring everything, and then you do like a threat assessment or a risk assessment. Like before you go do it, you're like, how am I gonna get to like the train or wherever, like wall or like climb whatever fence I need to climb past to like get in there and like do the piece and then get out quickly, and like what's my escape plan.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, he made a good point. He was like, it really did, like, it taught me to like operate professionally, like long, way more than like college or formal schooling would.
Yeah. And yeah, so the two main people featured in the movie were Scheme and Scene. And there were a whole bunch of others, right?
Yeah, in Style Wars there's a ton of people.
Style
and they
Wars,
go up
but...
to, they even show various like rivalries between, I suppose, different crews or even just different individual like writers. Right, there's a writer who keeps putting throw-ups on other people's like nice pieces, and everybody like hates them.
Well, he kind of ruins their pieces.
He does, yeah, and it's a real. It creates rivalries. Banksy famously has a rivalry with Robbo.
Oh, someone.
Yeah, Robbo, who's like because Banksy covered some of his pieces, so Robbo and a ton of other writers in support of that guy have gone and defaced Banksy pieces.
Man. But yeah, Scene right in Bushwick, you can see a lot of scenes.
You can see some, stuff. I've seen some.
And Scene was saying that the director asked if he could interview his mom, and Scene said, no, you really can't do that. And then there's all those parts with Scheme and his mom, and Scene said that he realized that if he had let them interview his mom, he would have had like a much bigger part. But he said that he didn't actually know that the movie was that big of a deal. He just like went on to do his own thing, and he said that people would say stuff to him like these little phrases, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" And they just kind of laughed it off and didn't respond. And then like 20 or 30 years later, he realized...
He never watched the film, I guess?
He did, but then he was like, oh, whatever, he was a kid. And years later, he realized that the people were quoting him.
Nice.
And he said it wasn't until he got to Europe and he saw graffiti that was not from any of the Americans that were in Europe at that time. He saw new graffiti. That's when he was like, oh, this is going to be a worldwide phenomenon. Oh. So let's talk about how the train graffiti ended in New York, which is sad. Which is sad, but it has the silver lining because a lot of the artists got, at that same time, they got opportunities to go do gallery shows in Europe. So.
Yeah, it was, I guess, right around the time that, Chelsea and the Lower East Side were discovering graffiti and, putting it into art shows. It was the late 70s, early 80s. That's when Ed Koch, as part of, wanting to clean up the city, he wanted to crack down on quality of life crimes, which, so...
Yeah.
It was annoying because he even describes it as it's both, vandalism and mugging and graffiti, which is, seems like totally different classes of crime. So... Yeah, Ed Koch, he claimed that the MTA basically, he told them they needed to start guarding the train, and got them to fence the train yards and get some dogs that they would put out in the train yards. And then that mostly fixed it. It's because it was much harder to get, a few hours with the train where you could tag it up, which is a shame.
So, in America, they weren't putting graffiti into art galleries. It was Europe that did that first. That's what I was like, no,
it's in Style Wars.
Well, the Style Wars doesn't discuss what was happening in Europe. So in Style Wars, apparently they had just cleaned all of the trains, and the graffiti that was on them was slightly slightly newer. Scene said that right before the cleaning, before the movie, they were absolutely covered. He was like, it doesn't give the best depiction of like how insanely covered they were. Like the entire car, the entire train, like entire car, almost like something that you would see in like one of those shuttle trains on 42nd Street, where it's like the whole car. So before graffiti got put into art galleries in America, it was put into art galleries, and a lot of the graffiti artists featured in Style Wars got to go to Europe. So there's an artist called Futura 2000, and he met The Clash and Fab Five Freddy and Charlie Ahern, who's the director of the film. And
That's pretty cool.
in 1981, Yaki Kornbelt, who was a Dutch gallerist from Amsterdam, came to New York to look for talented graffiti artists. And through Futura and Yaki, they basically cast or sort of like shuttled a couple of American graffiti artists to do a show in Denmark and the Netherlands. And among those writers were Dondi, Crash, Quick, Lady Pink, Zephyr, and Scene. And then after the gallery shows in the Netherlands, then like, because I guess New York was like looking to Europe to like what was cool, they started doing their own. So Style Wars doesn't really talk about that like intermediate European moment that happened.
Yeah, they treat it as though, right, there's some art critic in one of the galleries, and he's like, yeah, not since like Andy Warhol, like New York hasn't produced anything original or like cutting edge. So, yeah, bringing street art into galleries was the answer, I suppose.
And I'm actually drinking out of a Basquiat water bottle.
Mm-hmm. Of this era. Yeah.
Yeah.
The like.
Who was one of the
80s writers. You have to show them. Like,
yeah. I'm kind of it. Yeah, I don't know which piece this is, but yeah, it's a Basquiat one.
Yeah, so Basquiat had a very distinctive style.
Yeah, I feel like Basquiat didn't. If he had lived to be older, I feel like his art would be more interesting. And I feel like he's interesting, and his history and his story is interesting, and the people that he associated with, like where he hung out, that's interesting. I don't know.
You just don't get it. You don't get it.
Love his style. I don't look at his style and have a visceral like, oh wow like reaction. Yeah, there's some graffiti pieces or things around the city. I guess I like the ones with a lot of. I like the ones with a lot of color, and yeah, a lot of like color and contrast, I guess.
Okay. What are some? Do you want to jump? We can jump to the modern era. What are some modern pieces that you like?
Well, I would say I kind of just like random pieces that aren't like, maybe they're not really like murals. They're just like random. I don't really like the.
Oh, Bushwick Collective.
Yeah.
Based in Bushwick.
And not like I don't like it, but
they do great stuff. They're like phenomenal. They have a ton of like coverings of full buildings.
Yeah, so like 5 Points and Bushwick Collective, I think that's super cool, and that's like the industrial parts of Bushwick, and there'd be buildings with nothing on them, and you turn a corner and there'd just be like a like this crazy like piece, and then nothing, and I kind of like the surprise of that, and it just seemed more mysterious. It seemed like it was still done like in the cover of night, whereas I don't know, that gives it something that makes me like it a little bit more, but it doesn't make me dislike the other ones. It just makes me like those ones more.
You're equivocating a lot. Look, if you don't like street art, then you don't like street art. But yeah, other stuff that's cool in Brooklyn. Jerkface is a real common one who does like lots of repeating patterns of like Simpsons characters, or there's like the Jerkface like Bugs Bunny, and it's almost like almost like a tessellation or whatever, or like that's also very surrealist. Yeah, and then I forget the name of the cement plant that is right next to the McKibben Lofts near Morgan Avenue. That cement plant has really great trucks, and they'll have artists both do the like fence outside the plant, and they paint the trucks. So they have a bunch of very cool looking trucks with almost Mexican or like Aztec sort of style designs.
There's also Claw Money, who's
Yeah.
a very recognizable.
You a fan of Claw Bunny?
Yeah, very recognizable tag scene all around the city, which it's like a paw with claws, and Claw is a female. Her name is Claudia, and she owns the company Claw Money, and I've heard a couple interviews with her, and I think it's cool that she said that she would be afraid. She was fine like climbing up onto roofs, but if she had to run and like, you know, jump down, she was really, really scared. And you know, like let's say the people she was with, they were like, the cops are coming, we have to get out, and she'd be like, hang on a sec, and she'd like slowly lower herself down. Yeah, I think that's cool because a lot of the other graffiti writers, they're like, yeah, you know, like whatever, and she kind of humanizes herself. So, yeah.
Cool. So then we've talked about kind of in the 80s, the rise of tagging, bombing trains, and then Koch putting a stop to a lot of the like tagging of trains, which obviously didn't stop street art and graffiti because there's lots of buildings. There's buildings all over New York City, and there's like industrial areas where there's no one around at night, which are great to do pieces on. So I guess we could talk about more of the commercialization, because there was that initial wave in the early 80s, and then there are like, oh yeah, there's Claw Money, if you want to show people.
Oh yeah.
And
I'm
then
just showing people a picture of Claw Money.
right, then kind of like throughout the 90s, like street art and just like as part of hip hop culture, it was a thing. But then people say it's really like Banksy who started this whole, I guess, second wave of like commercialization, and like
Banksy and Shepard
fine
Fairey.
art collectors and like major art galleries again, like embracing graffiti and street art.
Yeah. Banksy and Shepard Fairey. And then, but I guess people in the grift, they published a book called International Top Sprayer, and like it's basically like crossed out. Oh no, we did not talk about.
Oh, we gotta talk about Cost. Yeah, Cost Revs are over in sort of Bushwick. Around the area. Cost has a studio around there.
You were gonna talk about more of the local artists that we know. I got in a little bit.
Oh, by the way, for those who are listening to the audio recording, our friend, I really hope you win, Albert Cadabra, has asked about what about Cost and Revs, or Cost Revs. He's an artist located in Bushwick. Albert, you're welcome to come on. You can chat with us and tell us, or we will try to inform the listeners from our own recollections of it. We're gonna stop tagging early 2000s.
Yeah.
I've seen Cost all over, and Cost has a gallery in I think it used to be in the Bogart building, in the art building right across the street from the Morgan Avenue stop, but Cost is tagged all over that area. And the other one, Fux.
Oh yeah.
Fux is a photographer. I have met him, but Fux is tagged, which I think is Fuks or Fuch.
Yeah.
Fuchs.
Fuchs. Yeah.
I think that's just his last name, or his last name is something like that. But he's a very like cool, like chill guy who's photographed a ton of celebrities, and then I guess he and Koss probably did a bunch of tagging together. Is why their stuff's all over near the Morgan Avenue stop.
Yeah, and there, I guess not so much anymore, but there used to be Rambo, like all over.
Rambo's
Bushwick.
everywhere.
I don't know if people have like tagged over it or cleaned up or anything. But I knew Rambo. He used to hang out with me and my friends all the time. And
When?
in like 2007.
2007, you hung out with Rambo. Rambo's impressive because you'll see Rambo tagged in just places that don't make any sense.
Oh, like on the freeway where it's like call your mom.
On the freeway, on billboards where you're like, okay, I see you got up there, but just in like spots where you're like, is he just like excellent at rappelling get into these like locations?
You have someone. I actually asked him that, and he's like, no, you just have someone hold your legs. you legit
hang upside down off the building.
You just legit like have your friend hold your legs.
You have to really trust them, I guess. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah,
and then he would tag it upside down.
Yeah. He was really cool. Because he's a very like well paid fine artist. Had gallery shows. He would make these little diorama or big diorama like art with like this the stuff that you would make like model houses, like model train kind of stuff.
You make dioramas out of the little model train stuff.
Yeah, the like little trees and cars, and he would just make a giant 3D picture with that, and people would pay like God knows how much money for. But then he would still go bombing, and he also at that time was studying or in the process of like becoming a Freemason. So he used to tell me that I was a witch, like in a good way. Like he would be like, the first time he met me, he was like, oh yes, you're a witch. Like, and then, so it was just cool because he had two sides.
Was he becoming a Freemason so that he could chisel, like, more accurately?
Probably.
For, like, doing graffiti?
I don't know. He was super into the occult, and, yeah, he was just, like, super interested in it. But I was there, he got arrested, and we had this whole, like, Free Rambo campaign.
When and what did he get arrested for?
He got arrested at Sway, which was a club/venue kind of by the Holland Tunnel.
Was he tagging up the venue?
No, he got arrested for grand larceny.
Oh, he just stole a bunch of stuff from Sway?
Well, because he was very good at like he would just steal stuff on accident for fun, which if he saw someone's credit card like hanging out of their pocket, he would just take it, and he would then tell us later, he'd be like, I swear, like, I didn't even realize that I did this, but now I have this credit card. So something like that happened. And this would happen like a lot.
It's very David Joe. Yeah.
It would happen a lot with like this group that I was hanging out with. They were just like, we just steal stuff kind of to stay in practice, and now we can't stop. So it wasn't even like kleptomania.
So Rambo got arrested.
Well, so he had this card, and I guess one of our other friends convinced him, or maybe took the card and bought like 3 bottles at Sway, and then just kind of ran up the tab on it, and so the girl like canceled the credit card, but it had already been enough.
That's a real crime.
Yeah.
It's one thing to just like take the card for practice. It's another to like then buy things with the card.
So we were all like hanging out at Sway, and then he straight up got arrested, and we never thought it was him. Like, because I was hanging out with like a lot of people who should have been arrested, I guess. And we had this. I remember we had this whole like Free Rambo like campaign, and we made T-shirts. I think we just wrote on T-shirts with Sharpie, and we were like trying to tag up Bushwick.
Yeah. Did anybody I mean, this obviously didn't influence anyone.
No.
You didn't do it in front of the police station or anything.
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
But he eventually, I think he just, like, paid his own
I think
bail.
he just made bail.
Yeah, because he was wealthy,
Okay. So, like...
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
But,
all right, well, I hope he learned his lesson for stealing a
well,
credit card.
it was like, it's more like, don't hang out with friends who convince you to use your stolen credit card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, like, trespassing charges are pretty common, so I guess you have to be careful after that. Like
Yeah.
tagging stuff.
Well, I mean, his tags still are, you know, they're places.
Listener Albert Cadabra has asked if you can also tell the story that you know someone who has a Banksy.
Oh, yeah.
And
we
there's
both do,
actually
Albert Cadabra and I
and
both
there's a
know.
documentary about that person getting the Banksy,
steals
right?
street art. Yeah. It's called... I think it's called Chasing Banksy, and it's a Frank Henenlotter film starring Anthony Sneed. And it's basically right after, or like in the wake of Katrina.
This is 3 years after Katrina. Banksy went and did a bunch of pieces in New Orleans.
Yeah, and so I guess it's a documentary, but also there was a script for it, so it's kind of a mockumentary.
It's a mockumentary, yeah.
About going to...
You're like, but it's serious. It's not mocking.
Well, I think it is mocking itself, and I think a lot of people didn't realize that, and they got pissed about it.
Well, you don't have to recap the whole film.
But it's basically... Well,
do they get a Banksy?
Yes, yeah, and Anthony has this Banksy in his... Well, I don't know if he still has it in his living room, but I do remember there was one day I was...
And he got it by, like, removing a wall from a building?
Yeah, it's actually... It's a fictionalized truth. Yeah,
Okay.
It's a fictionalized truth. But he actually has a like, piece of the trumpet player on this, like, piece of wood. And the way that he told me about it, he was like, it was crazy. There were a lot of, like, catching flights, and then we would, like, show up, and a thing would be gone, and we'd have to, like, get another flight. And it sounded like playing the game, like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where in New Orleans is Banksy? So
yeah, what flying are they doing? He was just going around New Orleans.
Yeah, you know, I don't know, but
bad sense of direction.
Yeah, I guess you can steal street art. This becomes a thing if there's a famous street artist, it becomes like a whole thing. And we were listening to a bunch of, like, David Cho
podcasts
and interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he said that he tagged, he wrote Culkin-Christ, flying from,
flying from LA to New Orleans.
To New Orleans and back, yeah.
David Cho, by the way, LA based artist, who also was in San Francisco for some time. There's a documentary his friend made about him that he also worked on.
Dirty Hands.
There's two of them, actually, but there's one from 2008 called Dirty Hands, The Art and Crimes of David Cho. And it is pretty funny. Like, you go into it not wanting to like him because he's, like, a famous artist and he seems like kind of a shithead, but it's really engaging and, like, pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
So.
But he talks about tagging Culkin-Christ on...
he was hanging out with John Cusack in Los Angeles, and who took him to Nobu, like a super high-end sushi restaurant, where he said, because John Cusack is sort of a robot, so he was like, you like spicy tuna rolls? And they're like, yeah, of course. And there's, like, some other friends there, and so he just orders 100 spicy tuna rolls. And David Cho's like, I kind of wanted to try the other food, but I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then they went, and then David Cho was like, well, we're just going to sit here and talk about art?
Let's go tag. Yeah. So they tagged Culkin-Christ, and he tagged...
They're in Malibu, so they can't just go tag public
tagged
like private
Cusack's,
property,
like,
I guess. So
garage.
Tagged Cusack's garage door.
And then he was explaining how it's a whole thing. Like, once you're a famous well-known artist, like, if you tag something, then it becomes art.
You can Google Culkin-Christ and you'll see, like, an appraisal and, like, photos on, like, an official looking website for, like, a gallery,
like, an auction
selling
house.
this piece for, like, $500,000 or something,
which also happened not selling it, but David Cho painted the famous Facebook mural before Facebook was anything.
Yeah, he painted their office in 2008. And Facebook went public in 2012.
Well,
and
he
painted it in 2006, I think. So,
yeah.
And then he
opted for stock. You know, they were like,
Yeah.
we can pay you like as much stock as you'll give me. And he's like, you do realize that like this, you could end up like owing me a ton of money. And they were like, yeah, whatever. And they did. I forget. It was like
they didn't have money at the time, so they were fine with giving him like 0.2% or 0.1% of Facebook ownership. So yeah, when Facebook went public as a multi-billion-dollar company, David Cho was suddenly worth $200 million.
Yeah, like overnight. I was looking up.
It is
might
funny.
have a
So
picture of it.
in that documentary, the Art and Crimes of David Cho. By the way, there is a clip of Sean Parker
2005
with
he did it.
with David Cho in the Facebook office after David Cho's just painted it.
Here it is.
And Sean Parker doesn't like the mural that he's done. And Sean Parker's like, yeah, there's like a big white spot over here and it's just blank. And then this other part is like distractingly busy and he's
Here.
clearly like unhappy with it.
I can show it to people.
So this is one shot of it. But
Yeah.
then
It's like a really
looks cool. It's a
cool
cool
like
face.
face with a lot of layers to it, because David Cho actually doesn't really do outlines. It seems like he draws an outline, but it's not actually what the finished thing looks like. He draws an outline and he kind of draws over that and he just keeps layering.
It's a pretty amazing sort of freeform style. Yeah.
He just throwing paint
As
around
he
and
said,
like
he just kind of
going-
draws shapes. He draws lines and then shapes appear to him and then he starts building on top of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's David Cho. Pretty fascinating character. We can talk about, because also in that movie, Shepard Fairey is interviewed.
Yes.
Why is Shepard Fairey famous?
Obey. So.
He's also LA based, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I don't know. I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
So. Well, he went to RISD. He went to Rhode Island, I think. So I don't think he is. I think now he is, but I think he might be.
Oh,
a New
he
Yorker.
maybe didn't grow up there, but
Yeah.
But now he's based in, I think both because in Exit to the Gift Shop, he's like operating out of LA.
Yeah. I didn't know this. This is like, I think, the most interesting thing that the coolest thing about him.
What's that?
Is that Obey giant sticker. Someone asked him where did that come from, and he was like, oh, I was just trying to teach my friend how to make like a die cut, and how to do like a print basically. And he looked through the newspaper and there were an ad for wrestling with Andre the Giant, and he was like, yeah, here, just do this, like cut like. And he said his friend like couldn't get it right. He kept like trying to, it was like messy or whatever, and he's like, I'll just do it for you. So the original stickers were just the Andre the Giant like face. No, didn't say anything. And he had a bunch of them, so he gave them out to a bunch of skater kids that he knew, and they started putting them on their boards. And then there was like a really big demand for it, and he started putting like Andre the Giant has a posse, because to kind of like make fun of how insular and like exclusive skate and graffiti like clubs and posses were. And so when people were like, well, what is it, what's it about, he'd be like, oh, well, if you're obviously not in it, because like you would know. Then so then people really wanted the stickers. They wanted to be like in the club.
So yeah, it started as just that Andre the Giant has a posse thing, and then the Obey sort of style is right. It borrows from like Soviet propaganda posters, like that.
Yeah, well, because that's printmaking. I mean, that's like when you do like a print.
Yes.
That's how it looks basically when you do like a cheap like one ink print.
Yeah, or like 3 inks or whatever, right? Like a red black or like whatever.
Yeah. So that's
and then
how.
also he did.
That's how it works.
When he used the writing he chose is like very Cyrillic influence.
That's how the
right?
ad was in the paper.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because it was like actually the ad.
Even that is.
Yeah. So that's what I think is so cool. He's
Even
like,
that
that
was by
wasn't
chance.
my like.
Because it became
Soviet.
everything.
Yeah.
It became this whole Soviet propaganda-ish thing.
And then it became Obey the brand.
Remember, it became Obama Change in 2008.
Yeah. Another thing which he stole, another design.
I guess it was. It was.
Right?
It was like. He might have done during the primaries, which would have been like fall of 2007.
It was a stamp, right? It was a stamp and a poster.
It was just everywhere. It was just a graphic that he came up with that I don't know if he was commissioned for it or not by the Obama campaign, or if he just made it out of like his own.
No, he
goodwill
was
and support.
commissioned. That's why he got in so much trouble.
Oh, okay. He was commissioned. But yeah, he used a Reuters photo for the picture of Obama, which is like, I mean, he had to use something, I guess. He wasn't going to freehand Obama's face. But yeah, you think he could have asked the campaign just for a picture of Obama to like do it. But anyway, yeah, then he denied that it was a Reuters photo. But I think in like court, they were just like, look, side by side, clearly the same photo.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, he was found guilty, but whatever, he's still fine.
Yeah, well, he said that was a very stressful time for him.
That's true. I guess, yeah, he thought he was going to be ruined, I suppose. And so, but I guess it worked out in some way where he's still out there. People
ask him what, they're like, are you a graffiti artist? Are you a street artist? And he's like, no, I'm an activist who does street art or something. Which, because he said that he would do like fashion stuff, like t-shirt making and print making and stuff to support his side hobby of like doing murals and stickers and like graffiti. And that wasn't, that was the thing that was like the freebie thing. And then he started getting paid for that. But he's really into like activism now and like, yeah. He sounds like he's raising two very woke daughters.
Okay.
And he's super proud about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of like both his popularity and that of like Banksy is that like, right, Banksy makes very political pieces. I don't know that you necessarily call him an activist. I'm sure he donates a lot to like charity. Banksy's he's fascinating because he has remained anonymous, right? And it's like very rare that you find an artist who remains anonymous, or at least tries to. There are a lot of theories. They're like pretty sure they know his real identity, but what's better is that like still nobody has like proven it really.
Who do you think he is? Who they've done?
I read up on this. Yeah, because he it's Robin something is the last name, and it's just like a guy from like Brixton, basically, from outside London. But he, in some interview with an artist who knew him way back, that artist instead of calling him Banksy, accidentally calls him Rob.
Ooh.
And then
yikes. His government.
Apparently, like his government. Very early on, someone traced him back to like when he first started using the name, because his name is like Robin Gatwick or something.
What was the first Banksy?
He started going by Robin Banks, which is would be a pretty good drag name. He started going by Robin Banks.
Yeah.
And then I guess he did like cassette art stuff, and he also really likes and was inspired by one of the guys in Massive Attack, the group Massive Attack.
Well, yeah, that guy was like the first London graffiti artist. Yeah.
What's his name?
I forget.
All right, I'll have to look. It's like C3 or something like that, or V3 or something equivalent. I believe it's the 3 in it. But so that guy very much inspired Banksy, who didn't make music, but like Massive Attack is also very like political and activist. And so Banksy pieces very famously are anti-capitalist. They have a lot of them have animals. They have like apes and like a lot of rats. Often feature like police or starving children, or like balloons, roses, flowers.
Because they're in like red, black, and white. Usually, there's not a lot of.
Yeah, he I guess famously, I don't know about famously, but he like discovered stenciling, or like
what?
Not discovered it, but like he came across stenciling himself, or like started using it because it was like much you could produce pieces
Yeah.
much quicker with stenciling. So he'd work up his stencils ahead of time and then go like put them up.
He's
He
like,
didn't,
you know
discover
that
it.
hand that was
I
way
didn't
back
say he
when?
invented it. I said he discovered. He found out
Handsy, they
about
called it. That was.
I'm gonna edit this part out of the recording.
Wouldn't that be awesome? That's gonna be my new graffiti name.
Yeah, so
Handsy, where I
Banksy
just-
learned
I
about
just stencil my
stenciling,
hand.
and then he started doing these pieces all over London and rose to prominence. And I think in part because it's both good art and the political flavor of it, I don't know, draws people to it, I suppose. And then Banksy has done a bunch of installation art as well, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, okay. So exit through the gift shop. Do you think that they're all in on it? How deep do you think the ruse goes? I guess.
We should maybe summarize the plot
Yes.
real quick, in case people haven't watched it, but go watch it.
It's great.
There's this guy, Terry, I forget his last name, but he's a French guy who's a clothing importer, living in Los Angeles in the mid 2000s, and he obsessively documents everything in his life. It may be like a disorder.
Yeah.
So
and
he just has hundreds and thousands of hours of video footage, and his cousin is the famous French street artist Space Invader.
Yeah.
And Space Invader makes murals, tiled murals that he puts all around Paris and cities around the world of typically Space Invader little aliens and stuff and flying saucers. So through his obsessive documentation, Terry filmed a ton of Space Invaders exploits, and there's footage of him trying to escape on a motorcycle or moped or whatever from the police and stuff. He was always just kind of a fun guy who would help out, and you see him carrying a ladder to go tag something and and never got in the way, and the video just kind of disappeared. He just put it in his closet. So at some point he decided he would make a documentary, and you think that's the documentary you're watching.
You think that, you think that he's I'm going to make a Banksy documentary with all this footage.
Or just, or you're just going to be a documentary
Style
about
Wars
street
Part
art.
2.
And then it's a really phenomenal documentary because then it becomes about the making of the documentary, sort of, because the documentary he puts together is unwatchable. And there's a new cut every 5 seconds, and there's no narrative arc or plot.
It really starts to just follow Banksy, too, which I think, because at first he's I take pictures of everybody, whatever, and then he's really just becomes Banksy's I don't even know, because there's a whole thing where they're at Disney World and they want to tag up the what is it, the Magic Mountain or the tunnel? It's a small world, and he wants to put the hanged man, Banksy's I think it would be really cool to put the hanged
it's a prisoner. It's a mannequin wearing a prisoner's uniform, and he wants to hang that.
It looks like a hanged body. It's a small world, and
you're right, I forgot
Terry
about that part.
is with he's with him and he's helping, and the ride stops and people are freaking out, and there's all this stuff, and they abscond Terry, and he
Banksy gets away, but Terry gets caught.
Yeah, and he he goes, they say, show me the film, show me the footage, and he goes, oh, you want to see the footage, and he opens he goes, here it is, and I think either he exposes it, or he just deletes all of it, because he's let me show you, and he either presses a button to delete it, or it's it's not a digital camera, and he just exposes it to the light, and that's when Banksy's okay, then I knew he was cool.
We don't want to go too deep into just explain this.
Well, I wanted to make that point that it narrows down to just him and Banksy after a while.
Okay, so the film he produces is unwatchable. So Banksy decides to take over doing the editing, and he says go make your own, do your own art show, go do your own thing while I'm working on the footage. It's going to take 6 months to a year to do the editing, and so Terry develops this whole persona known as Mr. Brainwash, hires a ton of assistants, and rents out an old giant, I guess, museum almost. It's some
a factory.
puts on a show, and he manages to get quotes about the show from like Banksy and like Shepard Fairey, so it makes it into like onto like the front page of like LA Weekly, and then like 6 days before the show, like no art has been hung. It's not even like done yet, and so all these graffiti artists like show up and help hang the show and like get it ready, and Mr. Brainwash becomes this international sensation, and so from this like crazy like probably Asperger's French guy who was just filming all these other graffiti artists. So it's very much like a commentary, I guess, on commercialism and art. And Mr. Brainwash went on to do like an album cover for Madonna.
What is the art show though when it does open?
So I mean, it is it really is like kind of pop art is very much his style. So there's a lot of Warhol inspired stuff, but it's all street art. There's tons of tags and canvases and
some
all
of
these
it though is
paintings.
like it's like a room with like a trash bag with like
good.
like a oh, I remember that some of it I was like, oh, okay.
No, it's quite. There's a scene where Shepard Fairey's like, whatever those little elves were doing that he like hired, they did like a very good job. Like they really did put together a show with like something like 200 pieces.
Yeah, there were a lot of pieces,
like a
but
first art show.
There were a ton of pieces, but some of them I was like, looks like filler to me.
Right.
I don't feel like it has any like.
Sorry, it doesn't compare to your solo
I
show.
think the real artistic statement is that the whole thing has like kind of tricked everybody into consuming it. I think that's.
I don't think that's even the point it's made. That's what I like very much about the film. Is that it kind of just it looks at this whole thing and it sort of shrugs because it doesn't know what to do with it. Like because the art's acceptable, it probably is. Technically, because it was made by like technically very skilled artists, right? Off this other guy's ideas, like technically just as good as like the other street art stuff that's hanging in like museums. So like, who's to say? And if the public believes it's good, like, is it? Like,
I guess that's also the point of just graffiti in the first place.
Does a very good job of kind of subtly posing all those questions.
But how far? So do you think that Banksy was in on it? Do you think it's Banksy's movie? Do you think it's Mr. Brainwash's movie?
They were accused of totally fabricating the whole persona of Mr. Brainwash and like
you think it's Banksy?
Getting an actor, and it's like, no, I believe that the documentary is honest. Okay, I think so.
But whose is it? Do you think
Well, no, I think the story that it presents is true. That Banksy took over editing and had all this footage, and then he included a bunch of like the second act almost about Mr. Brainwash. He like edited together.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, a lot of that footage I think was also like Terry's assistants or himself filming, like him setting up the gallery show.
I think that my theory is that it was a way to make Banksy seem more like edgy or less commercialized by creating this other like aspect to his own art that is even more commercialized.
I don't think he really cares.
Well, I do. I mean, he made his own like Disneyland that was like horror Disneyland for adults.
Yeah, we were talking about the installation pieces he does. Yeah, so yeah, horror Disneyland was one. He made a West Bank hotel that's like right like in I think it's like on the Israeli side, but right by the wall that separates like the Gaza Strip from Israel, and then had put a bunch of his art in it, and you could like stay at this hotel called like Hole in the Wall, I think was the name of it.
That's pretty cool. That's creative.
Yeah, he has a great sense of humor, so I don't think that he necessarily cares that much. Right? Like he's famously that sold that piece at auction that then shredded itself. The frame had a shredder embedded in it.
I love that every story on that says this is the first time in history that a piece has actually been shredded, and it's like duh, like that, like don't think it's gonna happen again.
Yes, so he's definitely a provocateur, I suppose you would say, but I mean part of it is that he's made more money than he ever thought he would from his art. And there are some like nice stories of people who like it was some like couple from like Brixton that owned a camper van, I think, or like a caravan that like in the late 90s, Banksy, when he was unknown, had asked him if he could paint the whole thing, and they let him. And then they, like, in the, like, late 2000s, sold it for $500,000. Or there's some house that he painted. He, like, paid somebody some money to, like, paint their house, the side of their house, when he was unknown. And
that's what that movie with Robert De Niro was about.
so the mural with house attached.
That's
like
great.
They actually sold the art piece. It just happened to have a house behind it.
So you can sell street art.
You can.
You can.
You just sell the entire building attached to it. Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of jaded because I worked for like a Mr. Brainwash. Basic.
You should tell us about your personal experience producing
Jeff Koons.
fine art sculpture, I suppose.
No, I worked on mostly the murals.
I mean, you don't consider Jeff Koons to be a street artist.
Some people do though. That's why I'm bringing it up. Like, he's in that like realm, and I think a lot of people don't like him because they're like, that's not street art. Like, because they look at him as like a Mr. Brainwash kind of guy, which he is. I mean, he totally
is. He has a factory
is.
of people producing
Yeah.
his art.
And I was one of them.
And you did it.
Yeah.
What was it like? You would go to work? What was the day like?
You would show up to Soho, to this, like, his space in Soho, and at the time, now I think they tell you what you're working on, but at the time they didn't tell you what you were working on. You would just get, like, your assignment, and so it was, like, color by numbers. It was, like, my stuff was all paint by numbers because that's what I got hired for, was to paint. So, yeah, you get, like,
Did
a
they
little...
know that you could produce art of the caliber of the jewelry that you're currently wearing?
Oh, no, they did not know that.
No
they
idea
didn't
that you
care.
had this.
For the podcast people, I wanted a dripping paint necklace, and that doesn't exist, so I made one.
They would have stolen your idea, probably. It's a good thing you didn't wear this.
Yeah,
to the
it's really awesome. And
Sorry, continue.
it looks designer.
So you show up. It's wild that they wouldn't tell you what. Even people who work on, like, cars or air conditioners know, like, what part of the car.
They wouldn't tell you, and their reason for that was that if you had, like, a shitty part of the painting that you were working on, they didn't want you to not take it as seriously.
You're doing the back of the painting.
Well, because you would get these were like giant paintings and like giant sculptures when you did paint. There was like 1 or 2 days where I painted like a piece of a sculpture, but it was like a little tiny piece. So they didn't want you to like not take it as seriously. So you just like paint by numbers, and then I got paid. This is also like in 2000, the early 2000s, the Bloghouse era, beginnings of the Bloghouse era. So I got paid.
Minimum wage was still $7.50.
Yeah, and I got paid like double that. So I was kind of, it was my friend told me paint, and I got money, and like that's awesome. It's also like kind of flexible hours. You could pick what days you were coming in there. There's an interesting, like, just tiny little tangent that there's an aerialist who was also working at this gallery. I didn't know this at the time. Recently, we were performing at, I guess like a year ago, we were performing at House of Yes together, and this aerialist looked over at me and said, "Hey, are you aerialist?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, we've been on each other's like coattails for like years, and she's like, I also worked for Jeff Koons, and everyone telling me that I should meet you, but we were never there on the same day.
That's how big the Jeff Koons factory was.
It actually wasn't that big, but we just kept missing each other. Like, we would change schedules, or like, whatever. Like, you would sit next to like different people, and yeah.
Did you work at like a bench, or were you all sitting on the floor? What was the deal?
No, you had like a little
workshop?
station. You had like your little station with your paints and everything, and then
your little brushes, and you're like.
Yeah, and then there was like another.
Did you have a magnifying glass to look at what you were doing? I mean,
No. You just like, because you were painting pieces of big things. Just I always went very slow and careful, because if you messed it up, they would be nice about it, but then you would not get hired again. They would like soft fire you.
Yeah, you want to do It's gonna be very smooth coating.
Yeah. And someone did break something
If you
when
want
I
your
was
balloon
there.
dog to look shiny, you gotta
Yeah.
very carefully paint it. And somebody broke something.
Yeah. And Jeff Koons came in for it, and he was like, oh man, like that sucks. And then like I never saw that person again. Like he was sort of parallel to sympathetic. Like he was parasympathetic, and then
This story is great because
it
it was a very modernist art sculpture, and you said they
I had to put it on this
please place the sculpture on the table.
Yeah, you were called an assistant. So this assistant was supposed to put it on its display thing because it was done. And he put it on upside down, and we all kind of saw this, and we were like, ooh,
You're like,
oh, girl, oh. And then he was lazy about it, and he didn't want to pick it up and like re-put it the right way. So he tried to sort of slide it, and he just pushed it right off the thing, and it broke. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So.
Very lazy. I'm
Yep.
sure as soon as it happened, he was like, what?
Stepping stone, and I was like, I never went to school, honey, and
yeah,
I have a steady hand.
Like, this
Good
is
day.
my
Yeah.
stepping stone to being a professional pole dancer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a fine art world, and then I did have a tag too back in the day.
Yeah.
In McKibben.
You were bombing.
You bombing.
bombed the apartment building that you lived in.
I did, and a little bit around it. A little bit around it, and sometimes if I was at someone else's
Did you
apartment.
bomb the playground?
Yes,
down
I
the
did.
street?
Yeah.
Damn. It's cold.
Yes.
It's cold.
Yeah, my tag at the time was an M, an S, and then an up arrow because my name at the time was Martha Screw Up.
Yeah.
So it was like
tag.
it was like Miss Up basically.
MS up.
Yeah.
Nice. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and I like to do it in pink.
Did you have like the big paint markers?
Yeah, I had a paint marker, and then our house had tons of spray paint cans, and we had a graffiti wall in the house. And there's actually like a graffiti beef that happened because the wall was just crowded with people's like tags, and we never put up a new one because no one cared. It was just like fun or whatever. And this guy, like a friend of ours, he came in really pissed, and he was like, yo, so disrespectful, like, where is so and so, you know, and like it was a whole thing because like
somebody put a throw up on top of his
they
piece.
did, but it was literally just both of their tags, and like you could still see both of them. It was just like someone wrote their tag and it like ran into his, and I was like I'm not getting involved in this. You guys can battle it out.
All right.
I feel like that's how you should settle graffiti beefs, is just like have like a battle, because isn't that like how you
battle?
Yeah, like you.
How do you battle? How do you?
Like you gotta do
How's
the
it
coolest
competitive?
stuff to like a wall in like 10 minutes or whatever.
I'm sure you have. That's a very like common Brooklyn thing.
No, I never went to common Brooklyn things.
Oh, okay. That's like a ton of like.
David Cho said that that was his biggest sellout for that company, the marketing company or whatever.
He did it. David Cho did it like on stage as like a corporate appearance. Came out and like drew the word, like painted, like graffiti painted the word like focus or something for like some company. That was his biggest sell thing. But this is more like it was a very common thing and you'd be like, oh, there's like bands. And then, like, there's, like, over here, there's, like, a poet, and we have vendors who are selling, like, jewelry made out of trash.
Is this Brooklyn Wildlife that you're talking about?
Over here, like, there's, like, live art being painted.
Is this Brooklyn Wildlife?
They may have had shows like this.
Other
people in Brooklyn also did. I also saw this in Japan. It's a thing there. I went to a DJ night when I was in Japan, and there was a live, like... He wasn't spray painting because none of us would have been able to breathe. So I guess the guy was just painting like kind of street art style inspired stuff on a wall. And this was in like 2007. Yeah, he was like airbrushing, I guess, a wall. Yeah, it was like I don't know. It was a thing that was in vogue, I feel.
Kitschy, actually. What up, Kitschy, out there? Kitschy said that when she had a little mailing shop in Bushwick, and it had a backyard, and she said that a ton of graffiti writers would do shows and events in the yard and would do like some throw ups on the wall out there. And she said her favorite one is Dick Chicken, which I think is chicken, but his head is a dick. And she said if she had a tag, hers would be tofu tits.
Nice.
Yeah.
That block, by the way, where that Bushwick Art and Paint used to be, it's now a Mexican restaurant, I think. It has, like, there's phenomenal art. Like, if you just go behind the building, like, on the street behind it, there's, like, some insane, like, giant pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, what's your favorite, like, area in Bushwick to look at graffiti? Oh, my God. I want to throw up because that sounded so cringy.
It's my favorite area.
It sounded so, like, yuppie of me to say, but, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Jefferson Stop and Morgan Stop are both great places to see stuff. I think the Jefferson Stop even more so now. If you head that kind of area around, like, Star Street, even those buildings are getting, like, gentrified and cleaned up. But still, there are a bunch of decent number of, like, warehouses around there, or, like, industrial buildings, especially if you head, like, into Queens. If you walk, like...
Oh, especially if there's a bunch
of Scott and Randolph Street that has, like, a bunch of nice, like decent tags or whatever along the side of it.
If you want to add some more nice ones to that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like that.
No, I'd hate that.
That'd be the worst. Please don't do that. Yeah.
Who was the... I don't know the name of the artist offhand, but there's an artist who kind of specializes in, like, furry creatures. And so they did the side of the bar Muchmore's.
Yeah.
Over near, like, Bedford Lorimer in Brooklyn. And they have a couple other pieces around the city. I think there's one you can see from the High Line maybe in Manhattan, and there are others in Brooklyn. But they do, that piece is like a wolf, and lying on top of the wolf is like a raccoon, and on top of the raccoon is like a mouse or something.
Oh, that's
and the
so
three
cute.
of them are, like, stacked up. It's very cute, but it's like incredibly detailed and takes up the entire, like, side of this 3-story building. So it's a very cool piece.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, actually. Yeah.
And then there used to be on the side of, I don't know if you remember the bar Tutus, was off Morgan Avenue. But near the Morgan Avenue stop, there's a bar called Tutus. On the side of it, it had a giant whale that had been dissected into, like, slices. And, what an incredibly, like, detailed, amazing, like, mural it was. It was just very cool.
That is cool.
And then we should shout out Muck Rock, who knows our friend, Double Decker Studios.
Oh, yeah.
Robin. Muck Rock is a really phenomenal, I think also LA-based, but Muck Rock is a really talented muralist. And she's, about our age, I suppose. But I did, like, this giant, brick wall in the back of the McKibben Lofts that was, like, in the backyard there. And I told you, I saw when she was setting up for it, and she just had, like, a bunch of crates filled with, like, spray cans. And kind of, like, looked at the wall and scaled it out, and then, like, put a big ladder against it and started just drawing strokes. And, my friend Robin was like, do you want to see, like, the sketch that you did? Or, like, he had sent her, like, an idea of, like, a monarch butterfly and a cow skull. And she was like, no, I got it. And she just kind of freehand from there did the outline and then filled in the course of, like, 12 hours, stayed up till, like, 4 a.m. or something.
Nice.
With just, like, a big work light on the piece as she was working. Like, this incredibly detailed cow skull with monarch butterfly wings that was, like, 30 feet long, like, 12 feet tall. It's pretty amazing.
I like that. Yeah, the Lower East. I can't remember, like, any specifics, but
you were saying you see a lot of tiny stickers is kind of a new way to quickly stencil.
Yeah, and I have this actually inspired me. Like, so you're gonna start seeing, me. Mm-hmm. With Arielist, like, in a sticker, like, hang, because I do Ariel, and I have all these, like, photos of me doing Ariel, and I turned a bunch of them into stickers. I'm gonna put them, like, hanging from, like, random stuff in the city because I think it's cute.
Oh, now you're making Ariel stickers.
Oh, I made a bunch. Yeah, they're in my bag right now.
Are they pink?
No, they're just like me. I mean, am I pink? I'm more of a peach.
Okay.
I'm kind of a little bit orange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're going to see those around the city. But you'll also see a ton of secret loft ones, especially with Dr. Wires as the astronaut. You'll see that all around the city, and a lot of just regular at secret loft ones with the question block. Yeah, when we didn't have our address posted, it was really hard to like get people out, and I was trying to figure out ways that I could gain more control and like get the word out to people. And so I would make tons of stickers of all the shows that we were doing and just put them like everywhere all over the city.
Yeah.
You know who's really killing the sticker game though? Is that Cuter Cupcakes. It's like a cupcake company, and they've
got
like
a great street team
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I told you about my brother worked for a street team.
And he got caught,
in
right?
like 2015. Yeah, he got arrested.
Which I think is ridiculous because like he
yeah.
put one on one of those green like power boxes or
Doesn't
something.
the NYPD have anything better to do? Yeah, I arrested him for doing street team. It was like a producer, like DJ, and he was like promoting him. And so that guy would pay him 25 cents for every. He would have to take a photo of every sticker. So he'd put up the sticker and take a photo and then send them, and the guy would like probably never looked at it, but that was the deal. And so he would just go out and do like, 50 at a time or whatever, and make like $12.
Take 50 photos of one sticker,
From different angles. That would be a clever way to
I could definitely remember stickers better, but when I'm talking about the places that I like to go to look at the different graffiti, it's imaginary world that isn't real. That's like, I live in like a rainbow crayon box, and that's the kind of feeling that I like. I just like to be surrounded by it, and I'm sorry to say, like, I don't like zoom in and really try and look at the pieces.
East Williamsburg really has, I think, still a really great collection. I remember living in that neighborhood, and just like the graffiti tours are like all over, or street art tours. Or like
and over here, you might see. No.
It would be a tall white guy walking backwards with like 30 or 40 Europeans and like Japanese tourists like walking behind them, and I would walk by and just be like, "You fucking idiots! Like, how dare you?" Be like,
"Here's the real graffiti tour. Let me take you." Oh yeah,
I should have, because my building got tagged the fuck up.
Yeah, McKibben.
I also had two graffiti walls in my apartment, which were done by...
We lived in the same place, but like many years apart.
Those two walls were done by two like very talented artists. I forget their names. One went by Skate, and the other I forget.
Was it like SK8?
No, it was just SKT. But he did it in these like crazy bubble letters, so it was like, it actually took a while to figure out what it said.
Oh, we should shout out Wild Style, which is like, that's a style of if you can't read the letters,
that's Wild Style.
Wild Style.
Yeah, if you're puzzling over what it says. And then I forget the other guy who did. Yeah, they did the Halloween party that I threw with my roommates in 2013. They came in and just in our kitchen did like two walls. In the apartment, I happened to come home in the middle of the day, and there was just like a yellow mist just like filling the apartment of just like acrylic, and they weren't wearing masks. And I like immediately like put my sleeve over my face, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, are you guys okay?"
Whatever.
Like, "Oh hey, what's up, dude?" Like, "Yeah, what's that?" And I was like, and I like, they had the windows open, but the window like at the far side of the apartment, like 50 feet away, so like not doing anything.
Yeah.
The whole hallway of the building smelled.
Well, you had like a professional like wall. We legit had a wall that we were like, you all can just write on this.
That is a really good way, because so many writers are like respectful of stuff that's already there. The best way to get your stuff not tagged or graffitied is to pay someone to tag your stuff in a way that you like, and then other writers probably will respect it and not write on it. But
we just wanted people to write on that wall, so they wouldn't write on like our counters or like our bathroom which happened. Someone spray
happened there?
painted our sink one time. That was fun.
Yeah,
It was
people
cute.
still marked up the rest of my shit.
Yeah.
But they'd put little tags in the bottom of it, which I thought was so funny.
They're
It'd
like,
be like
"Boop."
a little, like, oh, this is a wall I can tag, because clearly there's like giant
Yeah.
tags. So then they'd like down in the corner like do their little thing in paint marker or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, then somebody did just then like go do one of the walls in the hallway, and then the super was real mad about it, and I had to repaint
Oh yeah.
it.
Yeah, the super always like yelled. He said, "You're writing on my walls. You're writing on my walls. Stop writing on my walls."
That was the landlord. That's clearly a city.
Oh, yeah.
Accent. That was the landlord. The super was just a.
Yeah, we didn't have a super.
Oh, I had some,
But
some
yeah.
Italian guy.
Yeah, no,
But,
we didn't.
afternoon.
Our
painted the tag.
experience there was
Painted
just
over it.
we wanted my roommate and I, Dances with White Girls. What's up? We wanted to take over the lease, and Dances with White Girls never wrote graffiti in the building. He was the only person who didn't, but our landlord was kind of racist and was like, would not let us take over the lease because he said that Dances was writing on his walls.
Yeah.
And little did he know that it was me.
It was you the whole time. Wow.
It was I. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I should also shout out Days, who
Yeah, you should tell us
was
some
really
more.
cool.
We've covered all the history up to the
Yeah.
present day of street art. So yeah, tell us more personal stories.
Yeah, so around the same time, this all happened, I think, in 2007 was a big year. It's a big year for
Big
me.
year for you, yeah.
Yeah,
You met Days.
I met Days, who was one of the original. I think he was in Style Wars.
In Style Wars, he has a gallery show.
Yeah.
That's like opening, and he's like just talking about how funny it is that he makes more than his teacher does.
Yeah. And he, I don't know, he went on to like do fine art, to do some of the art. He really does everything. So he was studying and like exploring photography with like larger format and like 35 millimeter cameras. And he wanted models and
Civil War style cameras.
yeah, and then in like 35 millimeters. So just cameras with like a longer exposure, I guess. So one of my friends, Sinead, she was like, I just shot with Days, and she was freaking out about it, and she was like so excited, and I was like, who's Days? And she was like, oh my god, he's like this like iconic street graffiti writer from New York City, and was like showing me his stuff, and from his tag to like murals that he's done, and you know, you can find them all over the city. His website is Days World. You can look it up. Like, he has all the stuff he's done in the city, in different cities around the world. But he just wanted models. So I shot with him a bunch of times, and he was really cool. And the coolest thing that we did is he had this little like side project, which was you would go to Central Park and you would wear like a halter dress, like a one piece of clothing that you could quickly take off and then quickly put back on, and he would photograph you, like you would just like take it down and he would photograph you like naked standing right in the middle of Central Park, and then you'd like put it back. And then we took a couple of other pictures like where I was climbing trees and stuff like that. And in retrospect, that I of like bombing trains, right? Because it's something that everyone is going to see later, but like no one sees in the moment, and you're doing it in like a public space. The only difference is like you're not going to see me like naked driving by, you know.
Put some time. You thought about the meaning of this.
Well, no, I was just like, oh yeah, that was like no one would ever see you do it, but then everyone would see the picture later.
I'm like, how did you take this
Yeah.
photo where nobody saw it? And you're like, we are very fast.
Yeah, well, he's like, I have a system like worked out, and I remember his house and his studio were like into, I think for some reason we had to like drive through East Harlem, and he was telling me about how like crack really ravaged East Harlem, and how there was a lot of colorful graffiti there, and he was like, yeah, it was kind of like the like favela neighborhoods in Brazil, like these like impoverished but very bright very bright like houses with very dark things going on inside, and I thought that was like a really cool thing. But yeah, he was awesome. My mom has a bunch of the pictures he took of me like framed in her apartment.
All right.
Yeah, he's cool.
Nice.
It was fun.
Was that? I suppose that does that cover your anecdotes?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that's yep. I think that.
That exhausted my knowledge. I have no more information to tell you.
I mean, I was gonna say this is the interesting thing is the spray paint. You know, there's like so much information, the kinds of spray paint, and this I actually didn't know that the caps, like the different caps, the tips basically that come with spray paint, they try and disperse it in like a really wide sort of way, and like a lot of writers don't like that because they want something more fine. So you used to have to, it was like a real pain in the ass to get like the right tips, and then a bunch of graffiti writers started not making them, but they found a supplier and they now sell them themselves. So it's like the FUBU of tips.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
it's
like,
that guy who does the dolls with the sad bear dolls. That guy.
Really?
I think.
So they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's spray paint can. I guess caps or sprayers that are like have a narrow stream.
Or different. Yeah. There's like the New York one, and then the like Denmark
styles.
and the
Wow.
black one and this one, because there's ones that fit like European cans and.
Probably metric cans.
But
But
apparently, Montana is the best.
Montana is a company. And Montana Gold
Montana
sells
Gold and Montana Black.
and
Yeah.
Montana Gold. Montana Gold famously are lower pressure paint, and they have I think as a result like a finer stream, and they give you more control.
Yeah.
So they're considered like. Right, because you can do a line in such a way that it's like very fine without dripping, right? Whereas like you can imagine a can that shoots full force, you have to be like quickly move to like be able to get it to like not drip and like concentrate.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the difference in that Montana Gold is considered like the finest like artist paintbrush you can get for spray paint.
Yeah.
And I think their colors are like really brilliant. So
there's some
like
I think
after.
this color, which is like a magenta-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Color.
That purple.
It's like the rarest color.
It's that purple.
There's a certain color that it is.
That's why purple's a color of royalty.
Oh yeah.
Although apparently black was actually in the Middle Ages, where black was very expensive to like come up with fine dye for it.
I'm saying
right?
of spray paint. It's like the rarest. There's a certain. It's like a limited edition. It's a certain kind of like pinky purpley limited edition. And here's my last anecdote. So there's a street food and street art restaurant called Vandal on Lower East Side, and
how's the food at Vandal?
It's good. Okay. It's good. It's like funny takes of like street food from around the world. It's the same person who did Stanton Social and a bunch of other like fancy restaurant, fancy theme restaurants, I guess.
So they have purple. So
the owner was telling me there's a giant bunny, this kind of like a Coons style bunny in the front that's painted that color, and it has its own Instagram, and that bunny has like a ton of Instagram followers because people would take their picture with the bunny. And he was like telling me, he's like, yeah, and it's in whatever purple, like the rarest purple of purples. So there you go. Go follow that bunny. Okay. Yeah.
And we have it on our
wall.
On our actual wall that we painted behind us here. So yeah. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, we painted this wall to look like a brick wall.
All right. Well then.
Yeah. Oh wait, one more piece of information. If the people out there want to dance to graffiti,
to the spirit of street art and graffiti,
what can they do?
This Saturday at twitch.tv/secretloft. And yeah, because you'll get high quality video and audio, and I've got a chat where I kind of talk about why I pick certain songs or why the ordering is what it is in the set. And so that's going to be inspired by the history of graffiti.
Yeah. We got some German Denmark industrial.
We do. We have some European industrial
European
tracks.
industrial.
Some classic 90s, 80s style stuff, and then some modern tracks as well.
Woo! It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we'll be back next week to chat about something. And again, we don't know what it is. You can DM us if you have ideas. Otherwise, we'll come up with something awesome. Oh wait, and who wrote the song that you're about to play us out with?
I'm playing us out with an original track that I wrote.
Destroy all love.
What?
Abracadabra's telling you about Cause.
Cause.
Destroy all lines.
Oh yeah, Cause is the one who makes the dolls.
Oh.
Cause, and he worked on Doug. That's right. I was legit when I was like doing my makeup. I was listening to a Cause interview.
But if it doesn't,
yeah, and he had his little like sad bear doll in the Macy's parade.
my mind. Yeah, if something should happen,
And he didn't know that Doug was a phenomenon. He was like, oh, that makes me kind of happy.
That's not what I'm out here for. I'm out here to bomb. Period. That's what I started for. I didn't know
that Albert worked on Doug as well. I love Doug.
That's what I'm doing.
Doug is Canadian, I think. Maybe we'll do Doug themed.
Till I'm finished.
That line's real good. The interview's like, when do you think you'll, how long do you think you're going to do it? Make street art. He goes, till I'm finished.
Yeah. All city.
Destroy all lines.
Destroy all lines. Yeah. I'm gonna destroy all lines. I'm just gonna write really, really small on every card. Just really tiny. Maybe 1-2 seconds.